So Great Western Trail was Brad's #1 game 2 years in a row. Will this Great Western Trail Argentina beat it out?
Welcome to Bad at Board Games.
Well, he's bad at board games.
I'm Brad Lake.
I'm Toph Ferguson.
And we're bad at board games, so you don't have to be. What are we talking about today, Toph?
Yes, today we are talking about Great Western Trail Argentina.
Da, da, da.
Yes.
Stick around to the end. You will find out what Toph's weight rating is. You will find out what my value rating is. Is this experience worth your hard-earned money? And you'll also find out what our BGG ratings are. Where does this stand versus everything else?
So Great Western Trail Argentina is designed like the first one by Alexander Pfister, one of our absolute favorite designers. And this game is published by Spiel. This is going to give you about the same idea theme-wise as what you are used to if you have played Great Western Trail. The theme of it, instead of being in the Wild Wild West, is going to take us down to Argentina, but we are still working on getting our cows, taking our cows all the way to now Buenos Aires, not to Kansas City. But while we're doing that, we also are facing some different things. We are meeting up cowboys. Farmers. We're trying to help the farmers. We're not facing bandits like we were before. We're also having to manage food. So we are producing and using our food in various ways, because in this game, we are setting sail with our resources to various ports to be able to get different benefits as we go throughout the game. So theme-wise, you're going to see a lot of similarities with Great Western Trail, but this game is definitely going to start adding some different things.
Mm-hmm. The appearance, if you're familiar with Great Western Trail 2nd edition or the Rails from the North, pretty much the same. Unfortunately, they took the thing I don't like about Great Western Trail's Rails to the North. That's a mouthful. And they made the board shiny. Don't like the shiny boards. Lights make it hard to see. I prefer the matte board so I can see everything. I think Toph pointed out as well, like a little bit more saturation in the coloring would have been nice as well. So be aware of that. Everything else, the appearance and the quality is the same. If you like Great Western Trail, you got double layered boards. The really nice thing is these, when you're playing 2 or 3 or 4 players, it actually fits and goes into the board, where the other one was set on top and would get moved around a bit. So they learned probably from some people complaining about that. So that's nice. You have a bigger board. You've got an extra worker, which brings into the complexity that Toph will get into. The cards are a little chintzy, but they're still the same as the original. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with it. It's a half point better than the Great Western Trail original, I think, and mainly driven by the player boards, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, the original player boards definitely were still, 2nd edition were double layers. We have not played the original Great Western Trail, so I don't know if they were double layered there. But yeah, I will say this one is nicer. And they have a nice matte finish on it, so why can't there be a nice matte finish on the board game?
Please.
Just makes it so much. And I'm not even talking about studio lighting. Like normal lights, you can't see anything. So, yes. So if you are familiar with Great Western Trail, you're going to see a lot of the same types of mechanics in this. And if you're not familiar with Great Western Trail, here's a quick overview. You are going to primarily notice this as a deck builder game. You are using the cards that's in your hand that you're cycling through to be able to give you the points needed to be able to sell your cows. So as we talk about this game, as we talk about cows, we're talking about cards. We're talking about cards, we're talking about cows, because pretty much that's exactly what it is. You are going to notice a lot of hand management. You're going to have to use the cards that's in your hand. You're going to have to cycle through the cards that are in your hand to be able to get the hand you need to get the maximum amount of points when you sell off your cows. Big part of this is also set collection. You are really working through trying to, especially with your objectives, satisfy certain things. You're having to do a lot of management of resources. In the first game, Great Western Trail, you're going to notice that hand management is primarily, or resource management is primarily your cows. But in this game, you also have a couple new resources added into it. So you do have the food. You also have strength, and your strength is going to come in different ways as well. So a lot more to manage in terms of resource management with this game. Similar to Great Western Trail, you are taking a pathway through the board from the start all the way up to Buenos Aires. And like Great Western Trail, that path is going to veer off in a few different places. You're going to see some forks. I do think there's more forking in this game. And so you are going to notice some areas where maybe you have to think a little bit different about how you're going to place your buildings out. Your buildings are buildings that you own. So there's neutral buildings on the board, but there's also buildings that are going to give you benefits as you build them and as you place them on the board itself. That is going to slow things down because you're going to have to step through every one of those buildings as you make your movement. So movement points, another part of this game in terms of the mechanics. But those are the biggest things that you're going to notice as you go throughout the game. A lot of benefits here and there, various places to get bonus points or victory points. But for the most part, deck building, resource management, and movement.
Mm-hmm. So kind of get into our story. This is Derek's copy. I think Toph and I, we were like, yeah, we're going to get it. Just don't know when. And then found out Derek had it, and we played it, and then we played it again. And, you know, it was just kind of like, oh, wow, there's more here. Like the first thing was like, oh, wow, it's not take the trains and just get the cows and then you're paying, everything's about money. They've layered on this, you have to have wheat. And so you have to have the cows to get money, but then you have to have wheat, which is a completely different resource and a different way to get it that has nothing to do with the cows to then get them on the boat. And then if you don't have the wheat, then you're paying money. And so you're trying to offset all the money you just got that you have to now pay it, where you normally would always just pay for the train to go up. So you have ways to offset that, keep the money to be able to go to the next round and buy more workers and things like that. So there's this different puzzle. Mm-hmm. And then the places that you can deliver to, they leave. Now you get some more to deliver to, but it was just kind of like, oh, wow, it was this just different puzzle. And then I got locked out of being able to buy cowboys. Toph and Derek were getting them all by the way that they were, finishing and getting up. And I'm like, I had to play a completely different game. I had to build buildings, and I just leaned into it really hard, and I leaned into the wheat. I ended up winning, and I was like, wow, there's a different way to win at this game. And I almost have not found that puzzle outside of the cows in the Great Western Trail 2nd edition. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I had done a lot of reading up on this game because I had tried to buy it multiple times, or thought about it. Not that I tried to, but thought about it multiple times. And I think the thing that got me in playing it is really having to switch my mind. Brad and I have played the first game several times. And, I think there are some multiple ways to win the first game. Brad really is focused in on the cows. That works very well for him. I will say cows are probably the best way to win the first game. That's going to get you the most amount of points. With this game, it really I felt stuck several times because I couldn't get money. I couldn't get wheat. I couldn't drive an engine well enough to be able to do what I thought I wanted to do. And so that was big for me. That was, trying to find out, okay, what's my new way? What am I going to do in this game? Because I was quickly finding, like Brad was, we can't play it like Great Western Trail. We have to figure out something that's going to be different with it. And what I enjoy, I think one of the things that I've really found through the games that I've played with this is being able to help the farmers who you are meeting on your pathway as you're going throughout the game. Or maybe there's a building that's going to help multiple people all at one time. But as you help the farmers are kind of coming onto your side, and you're getting victory points with them, or you're able to use them in different ways. I was working that in the games. The first game that we played, I was doing a lot of good with it, but I wasn't doing enough. I think most of my victory points still came from them, but I got obliterated in the first game we played of this. But that strategy has worked for me in this last game. I think it really did help me a lot. That is so different from the first game that I was just kind of like, this is okay. This is it. This game is very different. And I think probably the biggest thing that stuck out to me when I was trying to figure out what this game is all about and then sitting down and playing it is the boats. You know, a lot of people, at least from what I had been seeing, don't talk about the boats. They talk about the ports. The boats really do change things up.
That's how you even get to the ports.
Yes.
And they only launch at certain times as you're pulling workers out, just like the cows. The cows only refresh a couple times during the whole game. And then the ports, each one gets launched, but they're like halfway through, 3/4 of the way through, and almost at the end.
Yeah, so that was cool. Not a lot of people talk about that, but that's one of the things that stuck out to me playing that game that first time was I got to get to those ships. And I got to set sail at a right time, and trying to figure that out. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Puzzle.
Yeah.
And so because this is the second time we're recording this, we'll talk about a little bit about one of the stories in this game that we had where we were both fighting for this 20 victory point chit in the port, right? So we had that not come into play, we would have had a 1-point game. So that 20 points was the winning position, and it was probably 90% of the way through the game. Ish.
Like,
you know, maybe 75%.
So if you've not played this yet, what Brad's referencing, and we're going to probably talk about this quite a bit, the ports. So with this game, you have 3 ports that you are sending your shipments off to. Each of those, you will take your discs. So the discs that you're taking from your board, upgrading from your board, you're putting them on a ship, kind of like you did before in the cities in Great Western Trail. Those ships set sail, your discs are now up at those different ports, and then you can use your wheat to do extra deliveries to be able to move them to a position on that port. And some of those give you money, some of them give you victory points. One of them gives you 20 victory points.
It's the king.
Yes. And it's, you know, both of us, I could see his eyes. I saw it. I was like, I think I'm going to be able to get it. And then I saw him eyeing for it, and he was able to get there quickly to the board, not to the spot, but to that port. And then it was the race. And then it was who's going to get it first. And I even said, when he was putting the piece up, getting ready to move it, I said, there goes the game. That's it. If he gets the 20, and I even said, there goes the game out loud, I knew that he was going to win. And fortunately for me, I was able to beat him to that. And so I was able to actually put my chit there. And I think Brad said the same thing. Well, there goes the game. It's just, man, it was a fight. We had nothing else we wanted to do until one of the two of us got there.
Yeah. And I would say we kind of talked about it. Like, if that ends up being the game changer, every game going forward, well, Toph had said, like, it might be too powerful of a position. And so we might drop it down to like 10 victory points. But we have to play it quite a few more times to find out, like, if you win and you're always there, you know, and you have that spread, then that might be a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, having a game that outside of one move was a 1-point game, you know, was great. So
yeah. The last game was not a 1 point.
No, I beat them a lot.
Yeah, it was downright terrible. Downright terrible. Brad beat both of the two of us, and Brad, I feel like, almost had enough score. Derek and I added our points together to beat both of us, but not quite. But I was left in the dust.
Yeah, it was still pretty good. So we'll move on to our pros. My pro is the first one we'll just talk about. Is I think there's multiple ways to win. So not this game here, but the previous one, I was not robbed, but like the competition for different resources and getting cowboys and then being able to buy the cows at a reasonable cost because you had cowboys was removed from me. So I'm like, well, I have to find another way. And so I just went heavy into builders, and I went heavy into trying to build as many buildings as I could and get like the number 14 or, 13 victory point one out into the game. And then I was taking my builders and placing them up in the train areas, and then kept rebuilding because I kept covering that same spot over. So I was able to win with that, which that's a pro. Like, I was able to find another way to win this game that wasn't just concentrating on the cows and delivering, because the delivering has a lot to do with the wheat versus just the cows that you have. The cows get you money, the wheat help you deliver. So I think that was part of it.
Yeah.
So for you?
Yeah. One of my biggest pros is going to be the ships and the ports. It changes. I mean, you know, Rails to the North changed the delivery system. So you had in Rails, in Great Western Trail, you had the trains and you had the stations, just like you have here. But along that train route, you had various cities. Each of those, as you get further away from Kansas City, would give you more and more victory points when you delivered to them. With this game, you're delivering to a ship, and that ship is setting sail. That ship is going to, as Brad said, you're going to have to pay the wheat to get onto it sometimes. If you don't have the wheat, you have to pay money, and that money goes very quick because you're paying 2 coins for every wheat that you're missing. On it, when you put your disc there, you are getting sometimes an immediate benefit of adding an extra objective card into your hand, and then you're sitting there ready to set sail. And as you go through the game, those are going to set off. So you have to kind of manage, okay, which is the next ship to set sail? I want to try to deliver to that, even though that may not be the most amount of points, because I want my discs at the ports so that I can then take the extra delivery option and be able to move those down to get that 20 victory points or to get the other coins or victory points you may see there. That is such a fantastic and I think more thematic implementation of delivery. Now, obviously, using your trains to deliver cows to cities makes sense in the US, but this just sets it apart. And it is such an added complexity. It's not a whole lot more complex, but it definitely has an added complexity to it that I find not only thematically fits, but makes this game better.
Yeah, and so you've got this, basically you have 2 things at the opposite ends of the spectrum, kind of, where you have wheat, and this is one of my pros. You have wheat that you have to get that's going to help you not pay money. But then this at the other end, once you deliver, your discs are no longer static. Like before, you would just, I delivered to Chicago, that's it. Now it's, I've delivered to Chicago, Chicago went to New York. In this case, I'm being facetious. And then I can take it and put it in, you know, a different subsection of that that's going to get me victory points. Or I'm going to get 12 coins and I need the money and I'm going to go and buy things when I start the trail back up. So it's this, you know, at the beginning, another resource that then helps offset money, and then it lets you get something else as well. So, you know, it's at both ends of the spectrum.
And they've worked the ports into not just the delivery system, but also the objective cards. Some of the objective cards on them show a compass with a compass point. And so you need to make sure that at one of those ports, you have moved your disc to one of the worker placement spots that matches that. So now you're adding complexity even into the objective cards that wasn't there before. I think that's awesome because now you're managing, as Brett says, these multiple ways to win. You are having to say, okay, well, I'm going to deliver to the north so that I can do my objective card, but that is not anywhere near as good as delivering to another region. Do I want immediate like benefit, or do I want to work for that objective card? Or is the 5 points or 3 points or whatever the objective card enough to offset the bonus that I'm getting from a different region? You know, there's so many different things to that even is a game to be able to manage and play. And that's, I love it. I love it. I do.
Yeah. And I don't know, we could probably continue to go on and on and on. Do you have another one?
Pros?
Pros.
Well, I've already talked about the farmers. I think that is an added definite pro to this game. I love how you can help them. I love how you are managing strength in your cows, but also in your tableau. So you have what Derek likes to call the boomerangs, little scythes or sickles that's on some of the workers and on your cow cards. And so as you go through, if you stop on a farmer, you can offer the strength of your cows to help them in their task. And then that farmer is going to come to your ownership. I don't want to say ownership, but your tableau. How's that? And you can choose to either use it on your tableau as a farmer. You can pay to put it in. It's going to help you get wheat through the game, or you get 2 victory points if it's sitting off to the side, and you can use those to do objective cards. I love the theme of it. I do really like how some of your buildings are allowing you to do like help up to 3 people and add some strength in. And the more that you add the strength from your cows from the cards, you're now having to take penalties because you're getting exhaustion cards that are added into your deck that are junking up your deck. That is, I don't think we had that in the first one, something that would junk your deck up.
Yeah, so you get these cards that go in your deck and you start out with one, but it's a junk card. And if you don't get rid of it by the end of the game, each one of those is a negative victory point.
Negative 2 victory points,
so like that brings in a whole nother, like you only get 4 cards and now I'm sitting here with this junk card. Well, I need to be able to try to get rid of it, or do I just hold it and then I can trash it from the game once I deliver, but I then only had 3 cows instead of the 4. So it's multi-layered and more complex.
Yeah, because you're not guaranteed to trash them. You have to find the specific buildings that let you do it. Even getting to the end of the game, you discard all your hands, they go into your discard pile. But there's a couple little spaces in the buildings, and there's a couple times on the board on your tableau that you can actually trash them. And that's, it's hard to call your deck in this game. So that's a fun added thing to it. I like the fact that it is hard to get money in this game, or I'm sorry, it's easy to get money in this game because you're using money so frequently that it kind of keeps it similar to how it was. I think it's actually harder with money now because I couldn't get wheat. I had to pay so much money. So another resource that we didn't have to manage quite as much in the first game that now we really do. And that helps. That definitely helps. So we've got a lot of pros. We can keep going, but cons.
So the easiest one, we kind of talked about it, is the gloss on the board. That's a con.
Yeah.
And it's a nitpick. And then I'll kind of go into the iconography on the board where you're placing your buildings. Before they had forests and now they have wheat, but then you're covering the wheat up. And then you have a building that says for every building that you have in a wheat tile, you get more. But now I don't know which one's which, right? So they should have taken the icon and put it in a different location so you didn't cover it up. So it's nitpicky, right? It is nitpicky, but it is kind of like, in hindsight, that would have been a nice change.
Yeah, and that's where saturation of the board comes in. It's so hard to see some of the colors on this board. They're very, very similar. And that's going to be difficult for accessibility for some people. I'm not having quite so much in need of the accessibility. My eyesight is getting worse, but the board is so undersaturated or oversaturated that you can't, I guess it'd be undersaturated. You can't really see the difference in some of these, whereas the forests were so dark green, you knew that tile was in a forest space. This one, you can't see that quite as well. That definitely is a negative. This is definitely a game where if there was a game mat available, I would buy it. Hands down, I would buy it. And that's probably is worth going out to, inkedgaming.com or something and actually getting a custom mat made just so that it cuts down on being able to see it. You also could bump up the saturation a little bit so you could see things a little bit better that way. But the glare in that, terribly difficult to see. So,
and this is where I say Mr. Brown is now complaining about the shades of brown.
It's a little bit different.
It's different when I complain about it.
But you complain
it's
about
okay
Euro.
when he complains about it. Just saying, like, so Brad's bad, and it's okay when Toph says it. So I'm just saying there's no double standards here at Bad at Board Games.
Brad complains about brown when it comes to Euro games. I complain about browns when it's hard to actually see what's on the board. Very different.
That's so different.
Very different.
It's absolutely just different.
Brad hates on me because I like Euros so much.
Yeah,
the war gamer in him.
I don't like Euros. Anyway, do we have any other cons? I'm having a hard time coming up with a lot of cons.
Yeah, there's some little ones. We already talked about a major one, and that's the 20-point spread that you can get with the one space. There's a 14-point. There's some other ones that are big, but that's a big one. Another thing that I see as a con in this game, and hear me out, this is nitpicking. This is not a huge con, but this is where we have to really flip our mind in terms of how we're playing this game. The availability of the workers to come out into the worker track to be able to hire them is different. We are not seeing the workers like we saw on Great Western Trail pop out like this. It is hard. The first game that we played, you talked about the Cowboys. Derek and I weren't buying up all the Cowboys. We just happened to buy up all the Cowboys because there were only 3 Cowboys that popped out on the board through the game.
Yeah, and then this game is like all the engineers came out.
Yeah.
And nothing else. Like they're definitely pushing you to this farmer mentality. This farmer resource, this farmer, this is a way to get points, right? So I feel like they've pulled back on some of the other ways that you're used to playing Great Western Trail second edition.
Yeah, I completely, the tableaus are not built out like we normally have them. I usually have at least a couple rows maxed out of my workers, and I had one worker that got into the 4 points, and you only have one that got up in the 4 points. We definitely did not fill it out. So
quite a bit stingy in that area.
Yeah.
So where are we at next? Weight rating?
Yeah, we can definitely get into the weight rating. This is going to be more complex than Great Western Trail, but not by much. Very much of this game is pretty much the same game, exactly the same game. The complexity comes into the added resource management and the added ships setting off to port, and then using the location of the ports as kind of a mini game, as you call it.
It's deeper.
Yes.
It's more depth
Mm-hmm.
in this game, more strategic depth.
There is. While you're still putting out houses or buildings, how you're putting them out because of the pathway is a little bit different, and sometimes it spans more, that's added a little bit of complexity into it. The big thing is the resource management that's going to really add into the complexity, and making sure you have wheat, but at the same time have money to be able to do this. There's a lot more going on. So with that said, the weight rating of this game, according to what's on BGG as of right now, is 3.83. To give you a comparison, BGG as of today is rating Great Western Trail 2nd Edition at 3.69. So 3.83 to 3.69. It's not a huge difference. I argue that a little bit. I see this a little bit heavier than the 3.83, whatever it is that this is rated. I see it a little bit heavier. Not a lot, but a little bit heavier. The spread, I should say, between the two games, I see as greater than the 10-point, 15-point spread.
So like this is a 3.9 and the other one's a 3.5?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I'm not saying this is a 4.5 game. I'm not even really going into the 4 necessarily, but I think the spread between the two games, you're going to notice that this is going to be more complex. So yeah, I don't think that 3.83 necessarily is wrong, but the span between them, I think it should be a little bit greater. So yeah, 3.9.
If you learn one of them, you'll be able to play the other.
Yes.
Like it's not a how to play complexity. It's a strategic play weight rating. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, strategic. There's a little bit of mechanic added on, but it's the strategy that takes it up that way. Brad asked me a really interesting question because I've been debating buying this game since it came out. When it was announced that it was ready for pre-order, I was ready to go ahead and buy it. I have played Great Western Trail with Brad. I love the game, and I've wanted to add it to my collection. But we try not to do that. We try not to add games into our collections that the other one owns, rightfully so, because we're able to play it pretty much whenever we want to. Even with people in the gaming group owning it, it's still like, okay, we can play it quite a bit. This is Derek's copy. That's fine. But I've been wanting to buy this for quite a while because even for soloing it or playing with my gaming group that's not a part of our gaming group, it'd be great to be able to add this in. So he asked me, is it worth buying it if you already own the other one? Like, is it worth buying both of the games or owning both of the games in your collection, Great Western Trail and Argentina? And I think that's an interesting question because initially, after the first gameplay, I was saying, no, I don't think it's worth having both of them. But having mulled over it, having it played it multiple times, having seen a complete mind shift on how to actually play this game compared to the other one, I can see a large argument for owning both because they are different games. It looks the same. A lot of the things are going to be pretty much the same. You're going to be able to read the rule book for whichever one you don't own and immediately sit down and play it. But the complexity, what you do in it is so different that I think having a second game in your collection, Argentina and the original, is worth it for some people if you play these style of games. If you like worker placement, if you like route movement or track movement, if you like deck builders, if you like resource management games, I can see somebody wanting to own both of these because I think that you play one game, you get used to it, you play the other game, all of a sudden it's a new game, it's a different strategy, and then you go back to the other, and now it's having to relearn it, having to play something different. So I can almost see it, but I think the vast majority of people would not own both.
Yeah, for me, it being my number one game of all time, if he doesn't buy it, I'm gonna. is really where it is. This is a different enough experience that I want both. I want the ability to play both. Now, trying to not spend is like, okay, well, I'll take this money that since he's going to go buy it, and I'll go buy like something else.
Yeah.
But I may still come back and buy this at some point. But, you know, if you love Great Western Trail, you will like this. And I think you'll want it in your collection. And then the hard question is, which one's better? Right?
Yeah.
So then that gets into that's a tough question. And we're going to keep watching and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. What about the value?
So the value rating, this is sitting right around $55. It's not on sale yet. You know, it's still relatively new. I think it came out right around Christmas-ish.
Yes.
So, you know, you're only a couple months in from that. It might drop as they bring out. They're going to have a New Zealand version of this. And I'm interested in all of these. But like I said, it's my number one game of all time. So for me, realizing I have bias, so he may have to chime in on this value rating. I think the value that you're buying in around this $50 mark, I really appreciate game companies that do this. To me, it's, you know, it's a 4.5 to a 5 out of 5 for the experience. It's my number one game of all time. I'm very biased, but like getting this much game in a $50, not a $100 game, to me makes it, you know, like this is what I'm begging for games, you know, to be in that $50 range and have this much gameplay. What do you think?
Yeah. So MSRP is rated somewhere around 70. So the $55, $56, something like that you're seeing it right now is actually kind of on par also with where Great Western Trail 2nd Edition is. In fact, looking at it today on Amazon, and I think Game Nerds and Miniature Market, all of those had 2nd Edition at like 59, and this was 56. So, you know, that I think is a fantastic price for a $50 game where you're getting dual layer boards. You're getting a lot of pieces that are out here. The artwork honestly is good, except for the saturation of the board, which we've talked about enough. There's a lot that you're getting in this game. And I think it is definitely warrants of that. The cards are garbage quality, I think. I would definitely consider
not the
sleeving.
worst, but one step up from worst.
Yeah, exactly. They're not the worst, but they're close to it. I would see sleeving these, not just to protect them necessarily, but to make them better quality, because even within one game, you're starting to see them. If you're shuffling them, raffle shuffling them, seeing them bend, and it would just make it easier to shuffle and to go through. So not necessarily protection, just making them feel better in your hand to hold. But I agree. I think at MSRP at $70, I'm going to probably bump it down.
3.
Yeah, 3 to 4, somewhere in that range. But for a $55 game, I think you are getting the complete value out of a $55 game. I do. I really do. So I would say, yeah, itching up there to a 5 out of 5 for the value.
So now we're getting to it. BGG ratings. So both of us will give our BGG rating. Then we'll talk about which one do we think's better. All right. So we have to wait till both of us are done to have that discussion.
Are we giving our rating of 2nd Edition Great Western Trail?
Well, we can, but like,
do you want to do that later?
We'll do that later. But yeah.
So, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to?
You can go first.
Okay. I am rating Great Western Trail Argentina, and I have. So you can double check me. You can go on BGG and find me. It's Topher Ferguson 1 is the name of my BGG. 9.5.
Nice.
I am. Yeah. 9.5. Where are you putting it?
I don't know if I've ever rated anything that high. No, Great Western Trail's definitely a 9 out of 9 for me. The first one. Oh, this is hard. I'm having a hard time. I almost think this is better. 9.25.
Next time we're gonna get a 9.125.
Yeah, I love I love the other game. I am not going to get rid of this. So here's the caveat for me, right? Is that I don't think this is my number one game of all time. Mm-hmm. So and I'm not going to make this the number 2. Mm-hmm. You know, I would probably now start to lump them together, like, you know. But like this is a 9 to a 10. You know, you're in that range.
To give you some grace as you think about where you want to actually put it, on my top 100 games, have games that are closer to the 1 position, my number 1 game, that are not as highly rated as games that are in a higher position. And that comes down to the game, my actual thought on the game, and then the gameplay and how we're doing it as a gaming group and stuff. So I rated this higher than Great Western Trail. I have Great Western Trail at 9.0. I rated this at 9.5. It would have probably been a 10. It's itching to the 10, but there's some minor flaws in this game still, especially with the printing of the board. But some other little things here and there that I think it doesn't take it up to the 10 value. So
yeah, and I would say, like, I love the movie experience for a 10, right? I really do. Like, and I don't know if I've got anything in a 10. I really don't. But like for a Euro game, this is like by far an amazing experience. This is like everything I want in a Euro game. I still love Great Western Trail, and I love the differences it has versus this. And I'll have to play this more times to say, like, but like right now, I like this a little bit better than Great Western Trail. I do. I hate saying it.
Yeah.
But I do.
This would absolutely not replace Great Western Trail for me. But I do like this better. I do like this more. I like the added complexity. I like the tighter resource management. I like the ports and what mini games or additional things you have to think about. I like the more complex games, and I like that added into this. But I still feel like they have done this in a way that makes a heavier weight, it's not the heaviest, but a heavier weight game still accessible to somebody who is not at that heavy level of gaming. I think I could sit down and play this with somebody who has played something akin to Castles of Burgundy, which is much lower on the weight rating, I think. And
about
still,
3,
yeah, and still feel like I am not putting them into a situation where they are going to be so far outside of their comfort zone in terms of thinking through the game itself. So that's some of why I've rated this as high as I've rated it. I have rated games 10, not many. There's only a couple. But this is up there. This is up there, y'all. Yeah.
So we really like it. And, you know, as we get more and more plays in it, then we'll have more and more opinions about it versus the Great Western Trail 2nd edition.
Yeah.
So we really do appreciate you guys sticking around and watching us. I know we go into deep dives on some of this more than other channels. I hope you appreciate that. But we enjoy sitting here and talking about it, and enjoy you coming along for the ride.
Yes. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, we would love to have you sitting down long haul with us as we go through various games, gameplays, reviews, Kickstarter stuff, you name it. We're going to bring you stuff that you guys want interest in. So let us know in the comments. Is this something that you're interested in playing? Do you want to see a playthrough of this game? Especially from 2 people that are bad at board games. Do you enjoy other games similar to this, or is this way off your idea of something that you even want to sit down and try? So let us know that down below. We'd love to know your thoughts. We'd love to engage with you a little bit in the comments. So,
and just remember, no matter how you play, whether you play solo, with family, or friends,
enjoy whatever games you are bringing to the table.
Have a great night.
Bye.